Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Friday, September 26th at 11:32 a.m. Folks, the charts are quite constructive, very contrary to the tone on social media. Uh, Contrary being the tone is destructive. No, the tone is apocalyptic. The end is near at $109,000 for Bitcoin. Can you imagine, folks, when the ETF launched in 2024? $47,000, and it's a hard phenomenon to pin down. It's a hard topic to discuss because you have groups of people that have different ages, that have had different times engaging with the market, engaging with social media, engaging with data, technical data. So, in a mere short year, a little over a year, obviously, since the ETF launch, the first ETF's launch, um, it's over double the price. So I just it, it's hard to clarify the sentiment I'm trying to express. A year is here's probably what the sentiment is. A year is such a trivial time frame. Now the problem is when you're younger, when you're 20, 1 year is 5% of your entire life. When you're 40, 1 year is 2.5% of your entire life. So that's probably the best thing I could say to explain the phenomenon. 1 year's time is trivial, but it feels more significant to a younger person than it does to an older person. Now, to make matters worse, the older person has more wisdom, more patience, more foresight, certainly greater hindsight. The younger person lacks all of that. The clearest statement that's possible is that the younger person is at a significant information disadvantage because the more you're exposed to information, the more experience you have. And because the younger person is at such a staggering information disadvantage, they have significantly less experience, therefore, capacity to withstand and continue to engage with a market that's going to test you at every goddamn corner it possibly can. That's all markets are a test of your capacity to have foresight, vision of past, present, future. Isn't it all obvious at this point where everything's heading? I mean, all the age groups, pretty sure it's agreed upon that the world is going digital, that crypto's here to stay, that the governments are literally supporting it. They want stable coins. They need stable coins. I mean, Lyd Alden and Raoul Pals, topics of conversation, fiscal dominance, and the everything code. These are very mainstream concepts at this point. Nothing stops this train. These are all status quo talking points that are agreed upon by the many. So if everyone agrees upon where we're heading, why do we still have these I guess maybe nostalgic at this point, conversations on social media about, oh, it's all over, oh, the cycle's over. The whole point of what Raoul talks about and what Lynn talk about and all this, it's over. The end is here, and the end is more and more debt, and nothing stops this debt train, is that the cycles are such a short period of time in the grand scheme of things. In the secular trend, which is the cycle of cycles. So you might have four cycles along a secular trend. And then you have a reversal. There's a little bit more is probably going to occur because I argue we just started our new secular trend that'll probably go for about 10 to 15 years. And that's my opinion. And I've shown you guys that from a DXY perspective. and I think it makes a great deal of sense. Okay, okay. Let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin and where we're at and why everything on social media is such a tremendous amount of noise. You see that green horizontal line? That was the high back in November of 2024. Then he got rejected again a little in January, January 25th. Got rejected. So, what I like to do, I like to take the little green guy and I go like this and I make some cirkies, little tiny cirkies. Okay, so we go like this, and we go like this, and we make you could make three of them here. Don't be shy with your cirkies. All right. Oh, let's make a big one here. This is a big one. That's a big cirky. So okay, so this is different. Let's here. This is different. Okay, look. And obviously this goes back to 2020, 21. But I'm on the daily chart. Look at me. You guys got me looking at the daily chart. But what do we got here? Oh, rejection, 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 a breakout. And let's do this. Ooh, support. Oh, shit. Maybe this is support as well. Oh, not that. Okay. Rejection, 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 rejection. Coming at that level from the support side of the equation. It's different. That's a big deal. Now we're talking about November of 2024. We're September, almost a year ago. Almost a year ago. We're at the end of September. 11 months ago, ladies and gentlemen. So in 11 months, four hits of resistance have just been tested as support at least one time, and it's working on the second one. Very constructive to say the least. And then you zoom out to like the weekly chart and you see where we are in the grand scheme of things. And I think it looks great from a 10 SMA standpoint, not even near a retest. So there's not that's if you're engaging with the 10 SMA one, that's a relatively weak moving average, relatively weak. And two, that's a position of significant weakness. So in April 2025, okay, we're on the ropes. I didn't hear no bell, and the match continued, but that's weakness. This, ladies and gentlemen, here, more cirkies. You guys need more cirkies. Here you go. Let's do the cirkies. That's weakness. All right, here we go. And look, that's from a 10 SMA standpoint. Oof, 10 SMA. That's weakness. If that's weakness, what's that? Are we interacting with the 10 SMA? No, we're interacting with a level. You're not even down to the moving average. That's not weakness. This is a relative position of confluence. This is an interesting position. This was a constructive position. They couldn't even punch the level, the Bears, to get to the MA. Those are the two indicators that really matter. I don't give a crap about trend lines. That's a bunch of bullshit. You got MAs and you got levels. And that's what most people look at. And therefore that's what most markets are going to respond to. Bitcoin is not in a position of weakness yet. You can always say yet. And then maybe there's a cyclical position of weakness. Or there's always a chance that things are going to end for a period of time. The bullishness ends for a period of time. But as of right now, there's no early indication of that. As of right now, everything we've been discussing in late 2024, especially in all of 2025 with the administration's policy, now the regulatory authorities, the SEC, heck, even the IRS, all of it is constructive around crypto, in my opinion. Can you believe that? The change in situation, not just from an SEC and Gensler and whatnot, even a change in situation from an IRS standpoint is much more favorable to what's going on. It's quite remarkable the changes that have occurred. A whole different ballgame, ladies and gentlemen. So Lots of constructive things on the Bitcoin chart. Now, Ethereum's a little bit different. It's not really a position of weakness because we're going back to like January, February 2024, and you have your levels of resistance. So the difference is that Bitcoin clearly broke from these levels because we're still at 2021 levels. Bitcoin's not at the 2021 levels. Here's the 2021 levels. Bitcoin is interacting with 2020, late 2024, 2025 levels. So Bitcoin broke out. All the DAs, all the asset accumulation companies and whatnot changed the narrative for Bitcoin. Ethereum, on the other hand, is still messing with all-time highs from 2021, for better or for worse, whatever. I don't even treat it as cash. You guys know what I'm talking about, the cash position. So, you can almost look at this as this. That set the tone. Resistance, 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 resistance. Aha, breakout. So the last time we were in a position like this is, I would say, right around here. Let's do this. Let's make that a perpy. Make that a perpy. Cirkies, perpies for cirkies. I don't know. I'm in kid mode because I'm just thinking of my kids in circles and I'm putting lines on a chart like it means something. So perpies for cirkies. Okay. So I would say we're in a position back here. So that's a bad position to compare to from a timing standpoint, from a cyclicality standpoint, because clearly this was the top. Q4 2021 was very much the top. So I don't think we're in that kind of position. I think we're in that kind of position with regard to this is the first time since Q4 2021 that we were retesting this level from the top side. So resistance, breakout, retest, and if this flips support like this, breakout, retest, support, higher high, there's your trifecta of bullish confluence. So now, for the first time since Q4 2021, we're at that position where we are retesting that level. Resistance, 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 resistance. Have this time, instead of just one resistance hit, we're working on five resistance hits because that perpy for cirky counts as a resistance. So look, it's a nice wick. So we're constructive. It's early. This is a weekly chart, boys and girls. A weekly chart. This is early, but you're wicking. So let's see what happens. You close above it, you close a little below it. You end up getting, you see it nicer on the Bitcoin chart on the 10 SMA. You end up getting these deviations to the downside for a little bit. You get a wick below and it stays down there for a couple of weeks. Oh, it wicks down and I can't even draw it because these are weekly candles. So it wicks down a little bit, stays around 3,800, 3,700, whatever. And then it finally breaks out. Whoopee. Now I would consider that support. That would be a resistance flip support. But we get to inspect that over the coming weeks. All in all, my 2 cents from a Bitcoin and Ethereum chart standpoint is this isn't a changing of the cycle to fear, to continued depreciation, lower lows, lower highs. I see us finding um, constructive interactions with levels and MAs. To me, it's pretty obvious. Pretty obvious that I'm like, all right, whatever. What's today? Friday? All right. What are you guys doing for the weekend? Barbecue? Those are the more important things to think about than, oh my God, what's going up in price? What's going down in price? So think about more important things. Aerodrome, if you go onto the daily, interacted with the daily 100, similar sentiment there, increasingly volatile asset considering its monetary policy. But you have your resistance, resistance, breakout, retest of resistance, and you have a constructive expression of support on a previous resistance. That is what you have here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, obviously, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of supply, but it's base, it's Coinbase, it's the whole narrative, it's whatever's going on, with Wagme Alexander, whatever he's thinking about with Syndicate and all the headlines that something big's coming for Velodrome. And I'm always excited about the aerodrome and velodrome situation. The drones are going to be very interesting because they generate a lot of revenue. And that's because they own a piece of the business. And what does a company do with revenue? They grow and expand. I think I think only good things about both of them, velodrome and aerodrome. And I could speculate interesting things. I would love to see a merger of the two. I would love to see an app chain emerge. I would love to see something interesting, something creative, something I don't know. I don't know. Could be many things. So, two of my favorite businesses that I own. Zero's been on a tear. Mark has been relatively weak, and Zero's just been punching this daily 50 finally. It's a very high market cap asset, and it got beaten up since launch. Needs to find the bottom. It may be higher low, higher low, higher low. And now we're finally interacting with an MA. Not bad. Over a year in existence, it's a constructive chart. I like this chart. Stargate released its locks when Layer Zero bought it. So obviously, my allocation to Stargate is now a liquid. I am not fond of that. Um, I I have its spot, and that is a very disappointing position to be in. I'd rather have a lock. So come on, Layer Zero, give me a place to lock it and give me some goddamn cash flow. I mean, just give me 10%. I'm cool with that. I'll sit around for 10 years if you want. But that's not even offered right now. So I am absolutely obligated to follow rules if the time comes. And we're barely inspecting bottoms, and these bottoms will turn into exuberant rockets to the moon real quick, and then we'll inspect tops. And I am absolutely obligated to sell tops, especially all spot assets. At some point, anything not nailed down is required by fiduciary obligation under pick your state law to sell it because it'll be in the best interest of the entity that you're responsible for, be it your personal entity or a business entity or a trust entity. It's a fiduciary obligation to make the best decisions possible. Therefore, if the market looks like it's topping, you are absolutely obligated to sell every damn thing that can be sold, which is why I appreciate so much the stuff that cannot be sold, because that is perfectly consistent with exercising fiduciary obligations. Cash flows down a little bit on VECRV from a spell perspective. They have been one of the most dominant vote renters over years at this point. Back down to 4362. All right, I'd rather see it back up at 5, but whatever. It's not even worth looking at the chart. It's a beaten up chart. You know, the broad scope of crypto fintech hasn't had a bid, and crypto fintech, loosely bottomed in November of 2024. So it's been a year, and Bitcoin bottomed in 2022. So crypto fintech is broadly lagging. It has some catching up to do. And I think when the market gets exuberant, I think it'll catch up real quick. Curve down at 65 cents again. Below the weekly 10 SMA, stopped out again on the weekly 50, as you can see here. Resistance, resistance. Literally nothing changes with the overall structure. There's absolutely no difference in the overall structure. We'll keep with the perpy cirky because I am too lazy to change the color. Resistance, resistance. Whether it holds 10 SMA support, I could care less. It's a 10 SMA. It's almost meaningless from an MA standpoint. 50 SMA is clearly expressing as meaningful resistance, resistance, boom, boom, decent levels. So you got confluence here from a resistance perspective, but you also have some nice structure from a support perspective, higher lows. It's not like the 10 SMA is meaningful support, whatever. Go down to the 10 SMA, the daily, and now you got some 200s and you got the 100s. So you got much more meaningful MAs, which contribute much more strength from a price action standpoint. And clearly you see an expression of support on the daily 100. Not much of the 200s in play at all, in my opinion, but you could clearly see interactions around the daily 100. Support, support, And this deviation to the downside, which is a very clear inverse head and shoulder structure, which is really the right hand shoulder of this inverse, larger inverse head and shoulder. I'm zooming in there. Um, I don't know. I don't see anything negative or positive. I see just shit just going horizontal. That's all I see here. Nothing really to write home about other than we check back. There's nothing to do. That's cool. And that's the way I want it to be. It's exactly the way I want it to be because I don't want anything to do with regard to capital management. I want to focus on other things. I'm a relatively old man in this space. I'm in my 40s. I'm not sitting here figuring, oh, what could I buy this weekend? What could I sell by Monday? What could I buy on Monday and sell by Wednesday? That's no way to live. That's no way to behave as a calm, collected, calculated person. I don't give a shit about the cyclicality. I care about the secularity. Because if Abe is going to be worth $400 billion one day, and whatever curve's going to be worth, I don't care about these numbers. I care about whether $300 billion in stablecoins becomes 3 trillion, becomes $30 trillion in stablecoins. That's all I care about. And we have the Secretary of the Treasury that has said that's what they want. So your government, ladies and gentlemen, has told you what they want. They've told you the plans. They've told you execute rule number one, citizen. Buy more assets. That's what your government has told you. Buy more shit. We're going to jack the price of your shit. Okay? That is what your government has told you. Gold at 3,800 was his futures. I should put up the spot price again. Like to see Atom pump up. I still hold on to that. Aerovelo is just decimated. I guess it's higher lows. There's nothing constructive from a level or MA standpoint. This thing's just at the lows. Optimism's at the lows, lagging, yada, yada, yada. Plasm's the hot thing on the block. Whatever, 70 cents to a buck 20. All right. I guess maybe there's some early investors, maybe they got it at 12 cents or even cheaper. I don't know. Because those are numbers. I mean, who gives a crap about 30, 40, 50%? You get a 10x on 100 grand. Yeah, that's a nice change in price. 112 mil market cap. I'm really interested in this chain. It's a stablecoin chain. Show me the debit card. Show me the debit card. And if I could transfer capital to an address on Plasma and I could spend on the debit card, then that's brilliant. Then that's lovely. Um, I don't know, but there's a crowded space at this point. Payments. You guys realize just a few short years ago, it was very difficult to spend. You would have to transfer to a bank account, and that really exposes you. It's a big deal to have a different type of capacity to uh, spend capital. And the debit cards have really changed the game, in my opinion. It's a different world than it was in 21, 2, 3, even 24. I mean, 25, all of a sudden, it's just an absolute explosion of available options from a capital expenditure standpoint. Absolutely wild to see. Go back to the watch list. Anything interesting that stands out? Otherwise, we go to the commentary. Lene, 2%. No, marginal, relatively flat day. Flat day, but it's nice to see Linnea. XPL is obviously the new hot kid. Nice to see Linnea with 8.2%. Hell of a market cap or a fully diluted value of 1.97 billion. Ooh. Okay, let's do it. Joel, good morning. Much a pleasure. Always on a Friday. The Hook, bueno dia, capitán. Okay, mucho gusto. Gusto verte otro día, un viernes. Gracias por pasando tiempo con nosotros. Okay, y todo, tú sabes. Era, good morning. Much a pleasure. Always good to Always a good morning. I mean, is it a morning? I don't know. I've been getting up early recently, ladies and gentlemen. I like my 5 a.m. wake ups. Feel much better. Able to attack the day much better. Anyway, I digress. I digress. The hook, cool, calm, collected, and moisturized. I just need more pizza shops. Yeah, yeah. Just give me. I mean, obviously, a pizza shop generates a fair amount of revenue. Probably making 100, 200 grand a year off a pizza shop. But the concept stands. The concept stands, ladies and gentlemen. If you can invest $10,000 and make $500 a year, that's cool. $1,000 a year. It's better. That's 10%. Dare I say, 1,500 or $2,000 a year. 20%. 20%. That's a big number, ladies and gentlemen. Uh-huh. I just things that most people don't see changes the equation really does. Most people glaze over or glance over some of the biggest opportunities, especially when you're in your 20s, always looking for some sort of magic. But the best opportunities don't present as magical in many regards. Maybe they present as boring and they're just misinterpreted or misunderstood. Hey, Cap, catch you in the sauna. Yes, enjoy. I was at the sauna. I was there, dropped my kids off at school. I was probably there before 8 a.m. Hit the gym. Got to hit the gym, hit the sauna. That's the morning. We start our day. Does Curve do any marketing for the product or is it all organic? It's all organic. It's Curve. I mean, literally, the world knows what Curve is. Curve is the first. Curve is Curve. Doesn't need any marketing at all, in my opinion. And yield basis is going to, guys, yield basis just went live. Ah, ah, who's excited? I'm excited. Yield basis just went live. Now, obviously, the credit facility hasn't clicked in yet. Um, and we don't have the TGE, so that's the emissions launch, token generation event, so on and so forth. The pools are launched, and they have the $1 million cap. Pretty sure they need one more governance. They need to adjust an attribute on the pools, something to do with the ape tax or certain configurations. So that's probably be another week or two, and they'll probably take their time. Let them take their time. It's not a mill. Great. Let them see the data. Let them make sure everything's good to go, and then uncap it. And boom. There's 60 mil. That'll probably fill up in about 10 seconds. My 2 cents, what plays out? The 60 mil fills up in like 5 minutes, and you have trading APYs and token APYs anywhere up to 100%. If they're over 100%, things are going to get really weird. If they're in the 50s, clearly in the double digits, 20 to 100%, things are going to be weird. Just things are going to be, I think that 60 mil credit facility gets filled in like 5 minutes. That's what I think. So yield basis is coming. I think that's the biggest thing going on right now, in my opinion. Completely off the radar. Folks don't understand what it is. People still think Curve's a exchange. An exchange, ladies and gentlemen. People think Curve is an exchange. Sometimes the most incredible opportunities are the least understood, is what it is. Bob Rob reposted this stream. I appreciate that, my friend. Good stuff. Good stuff. Sir Joe, President, accounted for. John Doe, Sports Canada, I believe they have some business development. They do have BD nowadays out of their whatever Swiss AG or whatever they call it. But if you listen to the recent Mitch YB cast, he kind of explains how board rentals allow marketing indirectly outsourced as well. Yeah, uh, I always like to hear him speak. He's so calculated. He's a very calm, speculatively reasonable person. Those are good characteristics. Very comforting. Good morning, Cap. Don't neglect the cash position. Don't neglect the cash position. If you got cash, you don't have to sell your stuff. Now, the problem is most people see their stuff as like money, like their total net worth, and they're obsessed with it. Like, oh, I gotta have more money. I gotta. You don't even have any money. If you own Bitcoin, you have no money. You got to sell it for dollars, and a dollar you could go to the supermarket. Uh, You don't gotta compartmentalize the portfolio. You got to create these structures in the portfolio, and they're artificial in many regards, and they're subjective, and they're your choices and how you want to think about breaking down the portfolio into different components. And I tell you how I do it. Brief recap: cash position, Bitcoin, stablecoins, investments, cash flow. Cash flow produces cash. Cash position, Bitcoin, stablecoins. Very simple equation. Can't have investments unless they produce cash flow. It's as simple as that. So Bitcoin is not an investment. Bitcoin is a type of cash. That's the way I define it. Maybe other folks will find that helpful or useful. Do not neglect the cash position, ladies and gentlemen, because you have adequate cash. You don't have to spend. You don't have to liquidate your assets. Executing rule number one, Dean. It's a good day to execute rule number one. Prices are down. Now, rule number one depends on many factors. Our position size is adequate in a person's portfolio. Um, Age is probably one of the biggest ones. If it's a relatively small portfolio and you're in your 20s and this is your first cycle and you have a balanced budget where you make like 4 grand a month and you're living at home and you're like 22 and that's cool. And you have 2 grand a month in bills and you take 2 grand a month and you're investing because you have a balanced budget and you spend less than you make and you have 2 grand a month and you're able to buy things, buy assets. And if you did that at 22, ladies and gentlemen, you change your life in your 30s. It's as simple as that. Do not move out of your parents' home. Stay with your family, stay with extended family. Do whatever you can. Now I sound like Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger used to say your first 100 grand is the hardest. So, how do you get the 100 grand? You get the 100 grand by literally doing the opposite of what most 20-year-olds do and fuck everything up. Stay at home, stay with family, stay with cousins. You get your bills less than your income. If you're making 3 grand a month, spend 1,500. Stop moving out. And I say that as a parent. Stop moving out. Move out when you're 30. The irony is maybe I was ahead of the curve. I moved out when I was literally 30. And I had to deal. So that's what I did. I had to deal with my parents. I graduated college, had a bunch of debt and whatnot, and then I graduated with an engineering degree. And it was very hard for me to get work because this was around 2006 to 2008. And I was doing pizza delivery. I did pizza delivery for like 1, 2 years after college with 100 grand plus in debt and an engineering degree. Go figure. Then I did tech support at a credit card company, and then I found myself as a software engineer back around 2009, 2010. I don't know, something like that. Um, but I didn't. I stayed at home, and my parents are like, "Oh, as long as you're working and you're trying and you're doing your thing, stay here." And I saved up. I saved money. I moved out with my wife at about 100 grand or so saved up from pizza delivery and my first job in a couple of years. And that's what I did. And God, can you imagine? This was, let's say 2008. No, this was 2010. So can you imagine if I bought assets? Yeah, uh, I my how my life would have been different if I knew my rules. If I knew my rules when I was 28, 29, 30. Ah, whatever. Hindsight, it is what it is. So I put a down payment on an apartment. Moved into the apartment, had $850 a month mortgage at the time on an apartment, and ended up having my first kid. And that's the story. That's the story I got for you. Do something different, ladies and gentlemen. Dare to be different. Dare to sacrifice. Sacrifice your time, your energy, and whatever the But people want to call it, oh, YOLO. I want to live when you're young. Yes, you want to live when you're young, but you also want to have a decent 30-year-old and 40-year-old life experience. All you have to do is a little bit of preparation and a little bit of sacrifice. My 2 cents, my 2 cents. Hope that helps. Hope that helps. Don't mean to be demeaning in any regards if this comes off as whatever it may come off as. But I say a lot of what I say as a parent. My children are literally not allowed to move out of the house until they're 30 years old. And that's completely dependent on me running the calculations based on their income level. And do they qualify? Do they pass the captain's test? Are they allowed to move out? How much assets do they have? How much cash do they have? What's their mindset? And if they're not qualified to move out, I do not give approval. They must stay at home until they're ready. Dare to be different. What do you think about our sup at this price? Seems like a rev powerhouse given market cap. Think market, Twitter, angry, hack. So our sup's cool. Um, Listen, our sup does well. It means Curve's doing well. So all the downstream protocols, including Yearn, including what have you, Stake DAO, come on, everything, Convex, any of those are doing well. Curve's doing well, and vice versa. So I don't. Well, years ago, I started really thinking, what's the point of owning downstream protocols? It's just excess diversification. Any of them are doing well. They're all doing well, and that's the whole point of the federation. And I don't talk about the federation too much nowadays, but the Curve Federation is what it is. It's the only real federation in existence in these crypto markets. It's a true federation because it's an organized effort of all these parties collectively around this relatively centralized concern, the Curve ecosystem. Hmm. And I call that the Curve Federation. So it's a big deal. There is no other federation really in these crypto markets. Hope that helps. Arrow, something on Twitter about Swift building on Linnea. Okay, it's about time. Isn't it inevitable? Whether it's hype or actual news, doesn't matter. It's inevitable. It's all inevitable. As I said earlier, ladies and gentlemen, the administration has told us the plan. They are telling us what they are doing, what they want. It's going to be $3 trillion in these markets in the next 5 years, 10 years. We're in the future. That's a crazy number. There will be more currency on the planet in the future. The equation is going to go as you think it will. It just will take time. So how do you let time pass? You have things pay you, because if they're paying you, you're like, all right, cool. How long do I have to wait? All right, wait. Let me click the claim button and grab money. Well, in the meantime, you're collecting revenue from work. Never quit your damn day job. And obviously, I'm talking from an older person's standpoint, not a younger, because I have meaningful revenues from my assets. When you're younger, you maybe have less revenues. Maybe you're making $50 a week or $50 a month from your businesses, in your businesses. Okay, but at some point in the future, it'll be $100, be 150, it'll be $200 a month. And then maybe a market cycle happens and it'll be 2 grand a month. And you'd be like, oh shit, I wish I bought more. Four. So Raul's talked about extended market cycle, extended business cycle, about 5.5 years, give or take. And I agree with that because of the different composition of debt, how Yellen did what she did with the yield curve and whatnot. All right, cool. Debt issuance for the pandemic era. Okay. So every couple of years, your $50 turns into $500 a month in revenue. Then the $500 turns into $5,000 a month in revenue. And Arrow, you know how we talk. uh, You get a 10x in revenue and where we're at right now. All of a sudden, a lot of the things a lot of people think about become noise, even more noise. It's like, what be freaking do you? Ladies and gentlemen, you're making 20 grand a month by clicking a button. You don't really have to think about a lot of the stuff people talk about on social media. Anyway, my 2 cents, my 2 cents. Stuff, pleasure. Peter, good morning. Dean, with you in the early 40s. Rule number one still applies, doesn't it? Simple as that. Rule number one still applies. I took a position in Samsara, the Nirvana's new product. Great. Um, Before that, it was Aerodrome, maybe like 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, give or take, something like that. Um, I think that was the only two positions I took this year. See, this entire year, 2025. Maybe I grabbed Aerodrome NFTs in 25. I don't know. I don't remember everything, but the point is, two buys. I spent money twice. Clearly didn't sell anything. I have my Aerodrome and I have the investment in Samsara, and simple as that. And I'm like, I'm not gonna buy any more because I can't neglect the cash position. And we just had a depreciative impulse in these markets, so I'm not really inclined to spend the cash, especially with a meaningful depreciative uh, period where available capital isn't necessarily there. Revenues are maybe down for a month or two till they catch up in late October. So, my man, early 40s, heck of a decade this is going to be. Greg, health factor in the shitter. Well, that's another. Oh, health factor. So make sure your personal health factor is not in the shitter. Your personal health factor should be through the roof. If you're talking about Ave health factor, that's another story. Watch the leverage. Don't get yourself into a jam. Don't lose your assets by taking on debt. Okay. Now, in my opinion, it's important to have some Bitcoin exposure in the cash position, Bitcoin and stable coins. So do not find yourself in a position that you have to liquidate your Bitcoin. You never sell your Bitcoin. I'm a Michael Saylor kind of guy. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist in many regards, which is kind of awkward to say. I just compartmentalize the way I talk about things and think about things and construct the portfolio. But from a cash perspective, I'm very much a Bitcoin maximalist, which is something that folks may take a couple minutes to fully process, may take a couple of stories for me as well to fully explain. But I would never put myself in a position that I would have to liquidate what's currently ascribed to the Bitcoin part of the cash position. I would borrow against it. And what do I think about debt? I do not like debt. So I'm very not inclined to borrow against it unless it's extenuating circumstances. In fact, I very much look forward to using Bitcoin in the yield basis. All hail the yield basis is going to be crazy. I am very excited for this protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, I also did opt for the autopilot, so the contract looks fine to me. Not that I'm the biggest software dev from Solidity standpoint, but I play one on TV and I can run that shit through AI like a professional. And from what I could tell, the only person that can withdraw from the contract is you as the depositor. The contract keeps track of whom deposited, and only the person whom deposited can withdraw. So the contract looks quite reasonable from everything that I can see. So I like this protocol. And obviously, I don't have anything against 40 acres. That's cool too. So both of them are cool. Just can't wait for them to take on Velodrome and I could automate the crap out of everything. Please, pretty please, ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space. Live on a Friday, September 26th at 12:16 p.m. Maybe we'll keep it a little short today. I appreciate all of you joining me. Keep it calm, cool, collected. Stay smart, stay rational. Less activity, less social media and Saturday. Make good decisions. Be good to friends and family. Be good to yourself. That's the most important to be good to. Eat healthy, eat less. These are just words of wisdom, some good advice to end the stream. 257 people made it to the end of the stream, and you are all now that much more rational because of it. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you guys and gals early next week on a Monday. Until then, peace.